welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio. Today is going to be a very special edition as we're going to talk about the game Ultros together with the composer of the game, Mr. Oscar Ratvader Rydelius. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy.
It's been a long time since the last time. For people that do not know where this podcast started as the Swedish podcast Äntligen Spelmusik, Mr. Oscar Ratvader here actually invited me over to his place, and we actually made the first ever recording in my podcast history, Eye to Eye. And it was such a blast to do that one. How does it feel to return, not between four eyes, but online this time?
So good. I was actually thinking which game we even talked about, but I was not sure. It was Wunderling, right?
Yes, it was Wunderling.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was so nice to have you here. I wish we could have done it four eyes this time as well, but you know, we also love digital stuff, so.
We definitely do. And for people that don't know me, my name is Kristoffer Schenström. I am the host of this podcast, and specifically, I don't remember if I said the number, but this is number 35. And yes, you have actually been quite incorporative in the experience of this game as well, as I know. Because we actually not talked specifically about this, but we talked a little bit about you working together with one of the developers of this game, Niklas Åkerblad.
Yes.
Or El Huervo, as people may know him of.
That was also on your show.
That was actually also on my show when we talked about SteamWorld Dig, and it was also it was a special but also a very fun time, to be honest. No, but the whole evening when we sat around and talked about video game music, but also the after party and everything was just a blast to have more people from Gothenburg where we were doing everything. When we went out to the restaurant and everything, it was so much fun, and I hope we definitely can do it at some point in the future now to talk a little bit more amongst ourselves, but also invite some listeners and so on, and just have a good time.
Sign me up. Sign me up. I'm there.
A little bit of a pre-chance for everybody else listening in on this podcast as well, that hey, we're going to have some meetings, not essentially in Gothenburg, but we usually tend to have some sort of meeting also in Stockholm every summer. So we'll see about that. I hope and hold my thumbs on something happening this year.
Would be fun.
Let's actually dive deeper into the soundtrack, but not at the right start, or at the start of everything here. No, for people that don't know about you, can you tell us a little bit what made you dive into video game music? Or basically, let's start from the beginning. What made you get into music, first of all? Let's start there.
So, I mean, it was always this weird thing of, thinking I knew songs even though I've never heard them. I remember like being super young, sort of singing along to songs I've never heard. And then also obviously the oldest story is that my grandparents had a piano. And at that time, there were no iPads or Nintendo Switch. So what would you do, You were just like, so I was just sitting at that thing and trying out what that thing was. And from there, sort of one thing to another, Mom was like, yeah, you need to try guitar. And, and that was the ball started rolling, basically. And then,
and when we're talking about getting into guitar and so on, which age span are we looking at this moment when you start doing? So in
Sweden, I guess like also because if there would be someone doesn't know, we have this super pretty thing, I think, in Sweden called like cultural school. Kulturskolan, and I think it's represented all over Sweden basically, but I must have been, I can't even remember, before 10 something maybe, and they had like an open house thing, open day, so you could go there, and then the saxophone teacher was there, the trumpet, the drummer, the guitar, and my mom was like, yeah, just, we just go. I was sort of very resistant at first, but then we went and met the guitar teacher there, and it was fun. And then, like, from there started. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, actually.
That's nice. So, from that point, we know that, you got into piano, first of all, through your grandparents. And then your mom actually got you into guitar. And to my experience of knowing you for these years now, it's interesting to see all the different kind of instruments you also transcended over time.
Yeah,
Not
I
just
suck
the
at guitar and piano still. Yeah.
So what's with the fascination that kind of grew over time for other instruments over time?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I don't know, like, I think the piano I still hold dear to my heart. The guitar has always been a bit of a conflict. I don't know. It's like hard to not see this, guitar around the fire somehow with the guitar. And I don't know. I think it's interesting because, like, when you continue playing an instrument, or maybe I didn't, elevate enough with the guitar, but I sort of always find myself doing the same thing with the guitar, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So then, like, moving into other instruments, at least for me, I was playing drums in a pop band for many, many, many years. And like, it felt like then I had already started doing some music, but I wasn't as locked in to my, idea of what I would do. So it was easier to kind of break your own pattern somehow. So I don't that makes sense, or
it makes some similar sense, but it also gives me another question in mind. It's like, what do you usually do in order to do this breaking apart these segments for you? What makes it easier for you
in terms of just not doing what I usually do with
exactly breaking the pattern of going back into the same kind of lane?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all about trying to be curious. I really try to. I mean, obviously, I'm blessed with having a studio where I work from, where I have all my instruments, but I try to go out in nature. I try to, record stuff outside. I try to, I mean, actually through the whole process of making Ultros that we're about to talk about, we did a lot of traveling. We rented cabins where, nature was awesome, so we could go hiking in the day and then write music in the afternoon. And those type of things for sure helps to kind of, for me at least, to not fall into the same kind of patterns over and over. So
yeah, and over the course of time as well. I mean, since we talked the last time, you have done Wunderling, the soundtrack for that one. I think you were working on, what could it be, the gunk that you were working on but couldn't talk about at this moment in time as well?
Could have been. Yeah, the gunk has been done since last time.
Is there any other game you've been working on since then, more than the gunk and of course Ultros, that you can talk about?
No, I mean, we also those years since last time. I also released a game called Populous Run. That was a game for Apple Arcade. But it's been like four games under all of that period. Yeah.
And also people who've been following me on my Twitch streams might have also stumbled upon some Ratvader tracks, because I do have tracks from both the Populous Run, because the theme song for that is definitely one of my favorites, to be honest. I love that.
That's totally crazy. But I mean, I really love that game in a lot of sense. I don't know if it got how much of a reach it got, but it also just the implementation and all the stuff we did with that game was amazing. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I still am enjoying it. I actually haven't still played the game, but I so much enjoy the soundtrack for it. It's really good.
Thanks.
But anyway, in order to start talking about a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Yes, we're going to talk about the game Ultros, this game that feels like a psychedelic experience deluxe, a Metroidvania with a lot of color and a lot of questions, I would say.
Yes.
So for people that does not know this, the game has been made by multiple people, but main person behind this project is Niklas Åkerblad, or El Huervo. And we can see this due to the fact of all the art in this game, because, well, I guess he did most of the art in this game.
Yeah.
I noticed that there are some other artists within this game, but we can definitely see the specific touch in his style that he utilized for many other games, but also for all his different arts. It's very unique, in my opinion, utilizing what could feel like a psychedelic trip. But the colorness of it is so unique, in my opinion, and I really love it. And that is also one thing that really caught my eye when it comes to this game.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting, just, the fact that people saw some of the first trailers and was like, is this El Huervo? Like, even though they didn't know. So, yeah, that's how defined and special his style is. Yeah, I agree.
So, in this, many people might already know the fact of a Metroidvania. Usually in Metroidvanias, there's a lot of backtracking. You need to upgrade your character in order to gain access to new areas, etc. One thing that is quite unique in Ultros, instead of backtracking in the same sense that we are more understanding to with a classic Metroidvania, In Ultros, we work in loops. And loops are very interesting and actually, I would say, quite unique. Because I haven't seen it in the same sense utilized in this type of game. So that's one of the unique selling points, I would say, for this game after been playing it myself for a couple of hours. I would say about 6 or almost 7 hours now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, super fun, super interesting. And of course, we're going to go a lot deeper on this. We will try to avoid as good as possible on any form of spoilers specifically. Yes. I don't know how well we will be doing that, but of course we will try our best in order to make sure that people like and adore the music that we're going to listen to this week and deep dive into those, but also talk a little bit more about the different areas and so on, so people will be interested and hopefully purchasing the game in the end.
It's all about the music. We can spoil everything, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Music hopefully will not spoil anything specifically. No. So, yes, with that said, I think it's time to dive into the first track of the week. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Yes. So as usual, Oscar has been the guest of this show and we'll have 3 tracks played this week. And I, as the host, have selected 2 of these tracks. But first out is one of the tracks that Oscar selected himself. And this track is named Dark Sleep. There we have the first track of the week. This was the track named Dark Sleep. And as per usual, I always have this, what type of feeling did I have when I was listening to this? I was basically relaxing, leaning myself backwards into my chair, closing my eyes, taking in the full track, and was listening in on this on repeat. So my thoughts on this track is the following. Emotional track that brings a serene melody to the table. Comes with a chanting that did feel a bit tad out of place, but does accompany the string instrument well. There's a lot of repetitive patterns to this track that we do hear over and over. So my biggest question is here, since this track is 6 minutes long, how come we utilize the repetitiveness to this? Because I guess there's a specific reason why.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, So this one wouldn't be really a spoiler, but this is actually the first song or the first theme that you would hear starting the game. That would be like, you would obviously hear the main menu before this, but yeah, so I mean, this song is like setting the tone of the whole game in one sense, and it's played in an area where you're still kind of thinking of what the hell is going on. With the shouting, you meant the choir kind of things, the singing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's the decision of long songs and repetition for me is usually a combination of how to service the game in its best possible way. So obviously, this song will accompany you through this first level, and therefore the length and the repetition, so that throughout the first level you wouldn't get too much of the same, but at the same time it wouldn't repeat too often. So in combination with setting the tone of the entire game, because this is also, as you mentioned before, the game sort of loops, so you will actually return to this specific area more times than others. So yeah, there is. I mean, I think we need to talk about stuff now. So I'm going to spoil one thing anyway. This is like actually the only area that actually changes throughout the game, depending on what has happened, sort of. So I don't know if you noticed that, but
yes, I have.
Yeah,
I have.
Yes.
No, in all honesty, when it comes in the beginning, I understand the name of it, Dark Sleep. First of all, as you said, we have this in the main menu, and in the main menu all we are presented with is some sort of spaceship in space. Dark Sleep being in space. And in the beginning your character is actually waking up from a dark sleep.
Yes.
And from there we don't really know much more. Everything else we will kind of try to understand, make our own kind of story as we progress in the game. And as you said, in this game, during the time over these loops, of course things will change. But it's more prominent to see these changes in the beginning where this track is played.
Yes.
But one of the things that I really like about you when you make music for games is you usually tend to have longer tracks than many other composers. Usually an average of track minutes when we're looking at on a generic composer, we're talking about between 2 to 3 minutes. But I think in consideration to you when you're making it, I think we're looking more like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting in my opinion, but because even with Dark Sleep, we have a lot of this chanting, ha, ha, da, 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 ha, ha. And we can hear this section over and over again, hence the repetitiveness. So instead of making this a 3-minute repetitive track of the same kind of choir going on, you still have some minor changes going on, but even though it feels like it's repeating itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's just me being stupid having a 13-minute long menu song, No, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's wow. It's there's so much into that stuff because it's also like this, idea of our the listener these days sort of like getting tired of songs easily or not. But I just feel for me it's mostly about dynamics and building something over time, where it's like I really think that there's a meditative aspect to that, where like the longer you go, the more kind of meditative it becomes. And honestly, that's also a big part of the whole game and experience. Like also the gunk that I did before, I started meditating a lot. So I feel like there's something interesting going on with sort of letting something build over time where, I don't know. I think there's, maybe that's not the thing you would put on always, like just listening to something. But I really enjoy this kind of mantra-ish thing where, something progresses so long. That's life. It's, it happens, it changes. And there's something there.
It does. No, one thing I really like about this, and we will hear this over the course of the 5 tracks that we're listening to today as well. But even though for the whole freaking soundtrack of this game, it is very organic in sound, to be honest. It feels very close to nature, which also kind of drives into what Ultros gives and also takes from you.
Yes, yes. I would say so, for sure. Yeah,
so
you can plant seed in this game, that says it all, right?
Yes, and that's not a spoiler. You will see this in the trailer as well. It has a great impact on what is going to happen within the game, on how you transpire with this planting functionality as well.
Yeah.
But let's start over a little bit on this. It's like when you got into the project of Ultros, I'm pretty sure it was quite early in the process of making this game.
Yes.
How did you go into like the question of what would the music be? I'm guessing you had a lot of your own plate since you were working so close to Nicholas in this case. Like you already kind of knew the framework of the game, so I'm guessing you didn't need anybody else's input. I was like, hey, I would like the music to sound like this.
No, exactly, yeah. No, I think there are some different interesting aspects. I was obviously working with the Gunk and Ultros sort of at the same time, because we've been in production almost 6 years. So we had an early discussion, me and Niklas, about like, okay, so this might take some time. What would be a good thing to sort of like stack it all between or around? And then the cello was an idea, because like cello sort of always it won't go out of style, I guess.
It's
and then classic. And I was also working with Björn at that time, so actually I think I started recording things before the Gunk with Björn, so maybe it was the other way around. But
Björn
so
in this case is the cello player then, I guess?
Yes, Björn Isberg is the amazing cello player that plays on all tracks. And then actually the menu music in Ultros is the first song ever written for the project, and that was and the song we just heard was the second song ever written for the project. So like we actually sort of had a like core concept early on that like happily enough stayed the whole production. So
So you had a good red thread already from the start then.
Yeah, I think like my and Niklas' work like in the beginning was very much like he would draw pictures, and then we would sort of do like he would draw pictures that you would actually in the game see parts of where a story unfolds, and basically he would draw those pictures, we would make like small videos out of that, and I would just do sound design and music on top of that. And the first song there was basically just me trying to, it's called OG Saint, the title of the first song, but my name for it when I was working on it was like Feeling OG, because I was like trying to figure out who this character was. So, I was very fortunate, very happy to be able to start so early on, and also just to kind of morph Niklas and my style together and sort of find that red thread, as you just said, to be sure what we wanted to do throughout the whole project. Yeah.
And for people who've been listening in on this Swedish interview I did with you, I guess the golden question would be, when it comes to the music that you created for this game and the different characters within this game that also have some sort of I would say character thematicism or themata to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Are we able to hear these character themes within other tracks other than their themes? Like in Wonderland, you actually had this melody in every track.
No, there is a strong lead melody throughout Ultros. But actually in the Gunk I was working more with actually thematic themes for different characters throughout. But with Ultros it's more about the feeling of the song tied to the area rather than different characters. Then of course there are occasions where like we will be in an area and then we will fight a boss in that area that is connected to that area, and then of course the theme of the area as well as the boss fight will sort of have some kind of connection. But actually it's all about OG, the saint, and then this it's more actually represented. You were singing this nice choirs that I have in that song as well. It's more like things like that, where those are the representations of, the wisps that we call them in the game, which are like pollinators. So that's actually more of, trying to represent things within the game rather than having it being like a thematic thing. So, that's sort of the way we went about it.
Was that I would say, I'm guessing this is not the normal way how you think about music when you were making it and composing it. How did it feel to work in this kind of sense instead than your maybe usual ways of working with music?
I think it was fun. It's like it's more of an emotional thing. I think that, for example, like Gunk, where they were very thematic. Like, there's actually a spoiler in the Gunk. Like, if the first like just 5 minutes, I spoil all what will happen in the game through the themes of the game. So
no.
so you can actually through music know what's going to happen through the whole game and how it's going to be solved, but then again you have to play the whole game to know these melodies. But for Ultros it was more like an organic kind of emotionally like spiritual, or I don't know what kind of feel that went in through it, than more like trying to, because it was also 6 years like working so long, it was hard to kind of, game changes, everyone who works with games, they change, so the whole concept was not there from the beginning in that sense either. So I liked it. I think it was fun. It's like becomes very personal in another sense, and you can sort of be a little bit more free, like within those different tracks. Like we will listen to one other song. I picked Gardner, and just like not going too much ahead, it's like then it's more about the instrumentation of his track, like why did I choose those, and why is the song presented in that way, if that makes sense.
So for this full soundtrack, you had multiple people coming in and working with different instruments and so on.
Yes.
Most likely because you haven't worked with those yourself, and you of course trust these people. Either you already know them, or I guess you know somebody that knows them.
Yes.
It's like
when
adding a new instrument into the music, what is the hardest thing you would say working with them? Are you working with some sort of I would say music pack and so on, so you can get a vibe of like, oh, this would sound good with a cello? Or were you already said like, yeah, cello definitely would do this, and then you call in Bjorn and it's like, hey, do this?
Yeah, I think so with the cello, at least because we worked so much on the Gunk, and sort of because it was overlapping, I knew what he could do, sort of, so that was for sure just that case. And then other things sort of were more of a happy coincidence, sort of like the amazing flutist, saxophone player, and baritone sax, or bass clarinet that plays Adrian. I don't know, we will probably not listen to any of his tracks today or where he plays, but sort of like he is such a multi-instrumentalist, so then it was like, okay, I imagine it be played on saxophone, but then he was like, I also play baritone clarinet, or bass clarinet, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, and then I was like, wow, okay, so what's that sound like? And then he just played me, and then I rewrote the thing, kind of like, okay, but that would be cool. So
in this case you actually had another musical artist in, and they actually had a little bit more information than your own knowledge to this.
Yes.
And they kind of added to that. Okay.
Yeah. I'd never worked with bass clarinet before, so that was super cool.
How does it feel when you get these kind of things like, hey, you should definitely check this out, and you have no freaking clue about it? Do you usually tend to be more interested in those situations, or do you feel like, oh, come on?
No, I think I always love that, because it's so much like that. That's why it's so nice to work with, real musicians, because they have that knowledge. Like Björn has so much knowledge I would never be able to, not even get, because he's been playing cello for his entire life. But the funny thing with like, if the bass clarinet is like the example, was that I had heard that instrument on a concert some years ago and was thinking sort of that could be cool. I didn't know what instrument it was. So then when I talked to Arjan about it, it was like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. And then sort of again, as I said before, some of the wisps that were singing before was a representation of them. And then this was, in this particular case, a boss fight where that bass clarinet became the perfect representation of that boss in that area. So again, it was sort of like, you're just happening naturally, and so no, I mean that's why you want to work with people. I think that's the funnest part, like always better together for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Usually when I tend to read up on articles where people work with great musical packs or sound effects and so on in order to create this luster, almost orchestra-wise, but without working with an orchestra, of course, it feels like we're losing out on some things. And I don't know really exactly what. Even though music can become good, I think it kind of lacks heart. And I don't know if you agree on that.
I think like for me, at least when I try to write or when people are asking me like, okay, so how to do my thing or whatever, I think like, and I mean, that's the narrative out there right now, I think, where it's like people are just saying like, okay, but do what you do best, right? So it's like, you know, I mean, I think you're a great host of this podcast because you are you, right? And then that works. And then the same goes for like Björn that plays cello. Like, okay, so I need to, you know, allow him to be him. So I think, yeah, for sure, I can see that point where it's like, at least, you know, you can sort of bloom in the... I think that's like also, you know, we talked about playing guitar or not before, where it's like you bloom. Like I can feel that maybe guitar was not the way for me to express myself in the best possible way, you know?
Yeah.
And I was often playing things that were not really what I enjoyed or like that weren't touching my soul or whatever. And as you say, then it doesn't become personal. And then, yeah, it doesn't transcend into being something that really have that depth either. So, yeah, I think, yeah. It's like Snoop Dogg, right? Like, just be authentic, like, do your thing. Something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. I think it's time for us to dive into the next track. And this is one of those tracks that I've selected. And this track is called Repeating Cycles. And there we fade out, Repeating Cycles. And this is one of those tracks you will be hearing over and over again. Not too close to each other, but you will be hearing this from time to time. And one of the biggest reasons why I chose this one is, first of all, it kind of sticks out a little bit. But at the same time, on the second hand, it is created by you, but also El Huervo, which is also named on this. But before we dive into that information, why... let's go through my thoughts on this one.
Yes, please.
Playful with what I think is a xylophone. But at the same time, either how it's mixed or recorded, it gives it a perspective of being further away. Like having another perspective to the track itself. Also, some of the tones we can hear in this track reminds me more of hammering sounds rather than the xylophone vibrations. So in my mind, in total, this, when we hear this dinging noise, is hammer banging, xylophone, but also a doorbell that rings.
Always on it. Always on it, Christopher. No, I love it. It's so nice. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I must actually. This one is only played one time, actually. So
it is.
Yeah, it's a very special one. I don't know even if everyone will actually hear this one because it's kind of hidden. But we can. That's not spoiling it either. But yeah, it's super fun. You chose this one. I'm just going to be totally honest. This was the last song even added to the game, and it was actually me adding this song as like a love act or homage to Niklas. Because it was super funny. Like we were on one of these trips of hiking in nature and composing music basically. And you're on it with the stylophone-ish. It was like I had this toy piano thing from Japan. And so there are keys, but they play sort of this metallic kind of small little tonal
metallic
things.
vibration-ish.
Yeah. And the funny thing was one night, me and Niklas, we were just like jamming away, and I was in the living room, and he was out in the kitchen, and he was just playing this thing, and I was like secretly recording him. So I was actually recording him on my iPhone. So it was like I didn't have any even proper instrument recording gear. So what you're saying there with like it feeling like there's a depth, it's because there was a super big depth. So he was actually sitting in the next room. So yeah, and then I was sort of like, I really loved that moment we had there. It was a really special night and special occasion, and I sort of chopped it up a little bit because he was obviously jamming, so I sort of corrected it a little bit and then added these droney tones and things around it. So I can only take a little bit of credit, actually. It should be more towards Niklas, but and he didn't know actually until the game was done, because also the programmer Hugo helped me to put it in there, so it's very secret, or it just plays at one place.
Okay.
So Niklas came to the studio, didn't know it, and I was like, yeah, I just want to show you one thing. So and we played this song, and he was like, wow. Actually started crying a little bit. Both of us were like happy, we made it. Been a long process, and yeah, so it feels very personal and very, I'm very happy it's in there, and I'm happy you chose it as well. Yeah.
No, I thought it was really sticking out to the soundtrack. It was always one of the reasons why I usually tend to pick the tracks that I do. But at the same time, it felt a bit serene to the outmost as well. It felt like it had what we talked about previously, heart.
Yes.
So it is so much fun to hear these kind of retrospect memory of this as well. That you were just jamming around and having a good time. And of course, when it's added then to the game, it's not just about it being added to the game, but also pops up the memory, most likely.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. It's like, I don't know, obviously my memories of this is not like, no one else can have those memories, but I think it's interesting also what we just talked about before, where it's like, heart or soul or spirit and things, and you obviously chose this one, so then maybe something transcends that thing, and someone will actually also experience part of that at least. So super cool. Cool.
We've been talking not a lot, but we've named it on multiple occasions, that spiritualism and memories and so on. And I think that's a huge part about this game as well, because since there's of course there's text in this game, but the story is not like written on your nose per se.
No. Yeah.
It kind of comes out over and over again, and you will take these bits and pieces and try to puzzle this story together. And I think when I've played this, it feels like this game has a lot of spiritualism added to it. And I don't know for sure. It's only my part of the story in this case. Just like you guys were jamming out and making your part of the story, I think this game is an excellent example of creating oneself's story and experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like these days spiritualism and all this is kind of like heavy loaded words, but I guess everyone would have to read in whatever they feel into that. But I feel like there's so much, at least heart, that has gone into this, and I definitely feel like this been like a big roller coaster for me in terms of introspective journeys and stuff. And I mean, it's like the thing is, I mean, me and Niklas, we've done a lot of music together, and so part of this game, or like one of the biggest aspect of the whole journey, is this thing called Himsa, which is like a non-violence viewing from Jainism and Hinduism, where so it's like, and that sort of was one of the elements that sort of circled the whole game, like planting things or killing things, sort of. And that thing is like super special in terms of spiritualism, I guess. Then of course it's something individual for everybody. But I mean, I think I actually was super happy with one comment on Bandcamp where someone was like, you can really tell people have someone put their heart into this. And I think that, call it whatever, but for sure, there's a lot of I always feel like it's like joking about like it's Voldemort when he does his when he splits his soul, that's what it feels like for me when doing one project like this for 6 years, because you kind of like you put your soul into this. It's like you kind of rip yourself in half, like you're almost becoming insane for games. So and then forever there's a Horcrux or whatever it's called in there in the album. So for others to enjoy or hate. Yeah.
No, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you're creating something, you put your heart and soul into something, and we don't know, any of us, in 100 years if somebody picks this up and it will become like a classical piece. You actually put a part of your soul without splitting it out there.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's one of the like most amazing things within the time we're currently living in. We can put things online, we can write books, and hopefully things will be out there for a long period of time.
Yeah. For eternity. Yeah.
I don't think for eternity though. not on a, when we're talking about digital, because at sooner or later somebody will be like, oh, this is broke. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever.
And we would have lost all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the digital. Yeah, just that's why we need to make cassettes again. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think you're onto something for sure. I think that's what you're doing also with this podcast. I think.
Yeah.
I take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of all people who likes music, Christopher. You're doing an awesome job.
No, but I think it's important to have the voice of the composers behind this, because usually you put your heart and souls into the work, into something that we all love that experience the game. And most of these people, they don't even know why they love certain things, because I believe from the bottom of my heart that the music does so much for a game. And which is why it's so interesting to actually have the honor to speak to composers in the way I do. I do this to educate, I do this to inform, but also give an actual voice to the composers on how hard and how much struggle goes into making soundtracks, but also the creative process. And in the end, maybe they are losing something. It's like, it feels like I'm losing myself by creating this, but it's so wonderful in doing so.
Yeah, that's
so there's a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things there. No, for sure. I think it's like, I always found it interesting with the hidden messages and stuff, you know. And I think that music is one of those cool tools or cool experiences where, you know, the subconscious is always at work, right? So like, okay, you listen to the first track sort of on your iPhone and you will hear the cello, but if you listen even more closely, like, you would hear the children that I recorded in Austria playing on a weird toy instrument, sort of, you know. There's always hidden stuff in things, and yeah, it's like the subconscious is strong and clever, I think. So yeah, I agree.
On the topic of Austrian children playing on weird instrument, which was the most like not unknown, but which is the least expected instrument you worked with for this soundtrack?
Ooh, I think a lot of those are actually sort of that ones, because or processes where I did things to try and find new ways to find depth, sort of. I did some weird things where I did reamping, if you're familiar with that term.
I have no idea.
No idea.
Revamping.
So basically people would do that before with like you would have recorded a guitar and then you would put it on VI cable into the guitar amplifier again and re-record the whole thing. But it's also kind of a known thing to do when you want to record acoustic spaces. So say that you want the nice sounding room of drums, like you could you put a speaker in a cool room and you play the drums, and then it gets re-recorded, and then you just record the room reverb, sort of. But what I did this time was on one of the songs we will listen to, actually, I put a speaker out in the lake, a lake in Sweden, and then I put a microphone on the shore, and I would re-record my own song with the natural reflections of the water and the birds singing, because since the game is so much about nature, I tried to recapture like the natural acoustics. So yes, in some parts we will hear it later. You can hear birds, and you will hear this kind of thing. So I did a lot of that kind of experimentations, and a lot of kind of droney sounds or instruments that's far in the back, but sort of again this subconscious thing, I hope is there, and it touches you in different ways. So yeah.
I know a lot of people love Bob Ross and his painting. Did you have any happy little accidents for this project?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, wow. I think
And don't
there's
say
always
project.
yeah, happy accident of just recording your friend jamming. That's one. So no, there are several for sure. I think that's part of playfulness, I guess. Just and again, working with people, like working with cello players or anybody, and they do weird things or they try things, and then stuff happens.
But when it comes to these recorded sessions where you call in or you call out to some musician to do something, do you usually go out with them as like, hey, I want you to record this and give them specific things, or do you ask them like, hey, please record this, but also do a little bit of jamming in comparison to this that might sound similar to it?
Yeah, I think like, so obviously it's all about time, so if there's time, I always try to do that, but then of course sometimes it's like, okay, we just need to record exactly what, like I don't think, like, only with Anna Maria, this amazing vocalist that I recorded for the game, that we did, like, I had some things exactly sure that I wanted to do, but then I also was like, one part of it was improvisation and doing like weird things, but almost always there's always like, okay, we need to do this, and then if we have time we would do something else. But I mean, one of the songs, I think you picked it as well, That Will Come, there's like this crazy solo. And we could get deeper into that later, but basically, that was sort of an improvised thing that I then repurposed, recut, and fixed with, and tempered with, and then had Björn re-recorded it again. So yeah, there's all those elements. Again, it's like what we talked about before as well, where it's like, okay, so you have all these amazing musicians that knows a lot of cool stuff that I don't know. Like, let's try that. That's
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next amazing track here, because this is also one of my favorite ones, to be honest. And it's the track that you picked, and it is The Gardener's Pilgrimage.
Yes.
Rydelius Pilgrimage. Interesting track, even though we do have a similar sound here. I feel like I'm being transported to the Middle East because of the added string instrument here. Is this some sort of harp? Question mark. Well, best of all with this track, as it leaves the beginning, the main composed melody gives me the same kind of flow that we may tend to hear when we do some sort of soul traveling. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about spiritual traveling. Moving on, the addition to is there some sort of harmonica in this one? Like, it's around the middle part of this. It's still what is it, 8-minute long track here. So
yeah.
it's still a very long track here, but it's interesting in so many aspects. So first of all, is there some sort of harp in this that we can hear?
Yeah, I mean, you're always on point. You're always on point. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a harp, but it's a really cool instrument called monochord. I don't know if you ever heard about that. But
heard about monochord.
Monochord. So, like, yeah, so basically, again, Gardner is like one of the characters that will teach you about seeds in the game. And I think, like, honestly, like, this was my favorite character to work with. And as the name states, like, this was also one of the times where me and Niklas, we were actually traveling to Gotland, and we had never been there, none of us, and we were trying to see, Ingmar Bergman, the famous Swedish director, like if there was some weird energy out there, and it totally was. So I sort of took on the role as being Gardner and being on the pilgrimage, and what better instrument to bring on a pilgrimage than a melodica. So the melodica, it's a melodica, and then that ties into the monochord because Gardner, being the full Zen character in the game, has obviously been on spiritual journeys. So the monochord is actually used as a meditational kind of healing instrument, where you can actually put the monochord on top of people and play, and then the strings will kind of resonate, and the resonate is supposed to be good for you. So I recorded.
It has similarities to cats then.
Sorry, say again.
So it has similarities to cats then?
Yes. Much similarities to cat, for sure. Yeah, so...
Their purring has similar aspects to their body.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that things there, for sure, I think. It's like beating hearts. But yeah, so I recorded that one with a super special microphone that can record up to 50,000 kilohertz, like so above what we can hear. So it's actually the same instrument playing over and over, but it's like some are pitched down and some are normal. So I thought that was a good, again, what we talked about before, like how to represent characters. And I was like, okay, but this is a perfect way. What better way to represent this super chill, awesome person who loves plants than with meditational instruments.
Yeah. Now, it's an interesting take on it, but at the same time, it gives this like aspect to what instruments can provide as well. But one thing that came to mind when you were talking about recording hertz beyond our hearing, what's the point of recording something that you can't hear?
So in this case, that's why I then pitched it down, because it's like, if you would record something that's above our hearing, but then pitch it down, it will be available to our hearing. So what you're hearing is basically the overtones of the instrument that we can't hear. So it's sort of like also a very known trick for sound designers, where like, because if you record to 40,000 and you pitch it down like, an octave, then you would only have higher frequencies up to 22, like to, half of that. And then, the sound would become a little bit like that. So, then if you would have this microphone, you would still have a lot of the higher end still there. So I don't know if that technical stuff, was on, if I was clear.
So theoretically, if we're talking about like, you can go so many hertz that you can't hear them anymore, but because you're utilizing this pitching down, you're basically having that. So instead of going 48 to 24, you will theoretically go 600,000 to 30,000.
Exactly.
Still, you will be a little bit higher than the half of it, but you still have a little bit of a clearer aspect to the sound itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
If that helps everybody to understand it a little bit more. For me, who is not really into this kind of nerdy.
No. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but that you're on it. You're on it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But when it comes to making this track, so in the process of making this, you said you were traveling to Gotland in order to go on your own little pilgrimage and exploration, of course. Did you already know about the Gardner character and what he was supposed to do and what kind of role he would play in the game at this point, or?
Ooh, that's a good. Now I'm sort of like mixing up all the years we've been working on this. So I'm actually a little bit unsure. Because obviously I was still like this idea of him traveling, Gardner going on pilgrimage was there. So I knew that much about the character, and I know he would be like the one who explains everything about the seeds. I'm not sure if I knew exactly what he was going to do in the game, but obviously we had talked about all the characters anyway. So the core values or whatever was already there. Yeah, exactly.
And also another thing that I really like about the character, but also this track, we've been talking so much about the spiritualistic part and so on, but considering and comparing this track to a lot of the other tracks, this one has a lot of positivity to it as well. It has these happier tones, and this kind of is also reflected onto the character. He's one of the most positive characters within the game. And for some reason, considering since there's no voices in this game, there's no voiceover on these characters, there's only text. But for some reason, I definitely think he's a German guy, because he says
Yeah.
Ooh,
no,
don't
for
you
sure.
Think?
Yeah. No, exactly. Like no voiceover. I mean, I did a lot of work with all characters have different sounds when they start talking, and then the individual text popping up is also actually different from character to character. So that helps a little bit of interpreting like how their emotional state of the different characters. But I think like in terms of just writing these songs, Gardner was the easiest one to. I have a lot of Gardner songs that were not in the game because it was so fun just hanging out with that character. I love that character. It was so easy for me to write those songs. I don't know.
Did you feel you were more connected to him in some sense? Because I know you are more of this nature person, in considering to me at least.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I did my part of, going to hipster school. I don't know if you know that. I went to hipster school studying, to sustainability and self-sustainability, growing stuff and stuff. So, no, for sure.
I know you've been growing. I never really remembered, or if we talked about it or not, that you actually went to school for that. But I know I seen you planting and so on. By following your media.
Yeah. No, I think it's like, I don't know, Gardner, I think it's like, I don't know why, but this game was also doing boss songs was really hard for me this time around. I don't know. Doing this angry part was, or maybe it was just because, as you said, most other songs are a bit more like dark. So Gardner being the only one sort of being super, super positive, it was easier therefore. I'm not sure. But sometimes it's also, you just vibe with stuff, and
definitely.
I think that Gardner and me are one for sure.
Maybe Niklas made him in your image to some extent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was when I studied at school. He was the one that visited me most times when I studied there. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to ask him.
But in consideration, you talked a little bit about the boss themes now as well. In consideration to that, you said previously that the boss themes aren't too separated from the areas they're in. And since you have this like darker, I would say melancholic kind of vibe to the areas, most of them, how did you feel like converting them more to? Because usually when you play some sort of boss battle, you usually tend to have this aggressiveness to it. It's like, you want to pressure the player into making mistakes with the music. It's a little bit different in this case though, but making that like change for a boss theme. Like what was the strongest issue for you to work with? Because I'm guessing it was hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been meditating a lot on that, but I feel like boss music these days are exactly what you just said, sort of, trying to stress the player and trying to just be like cool rock and roll, cool drums, kind of vibey things. And for me, it's like, I mean, that's not scary. I don't know. It's like, so what is scary for real? So I think also I put a lot of pressure on myself in really trying to elevate boss songs into being something else than just fast drum, fast rhythm kind of things. Because in one way, of course, everyone that has tried to do those kind of songs knows that works. And it's much harder to do like a slow one, but still make it, scary or, evoke or stress you in some sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was a combination of that. Plus, like, again, the game is about, non-violence. I sort of saw it clearly afterwards. Where it's like, why did I have so hard times trying to make these boss battle songs? And I was like, because I didn't want to do what I've done before. I didn't want to do what most people do. And then it was like, and I also was focusing more on the positive aspect of non-violence. So therefore Gardner was easy. And I mean, it's kind of the boss. I don't know if you listen to those, but it's like there's a saxophone solo in one, there's a cello solo in the other, and then there's just like, it's just weirdness. It's like super, but
boss instruments.
yeah.
No, I didn't listen to that extent to really point that down, but it's interesting to hear about that you thought about those things. But it always, when it comes down to music, and one of the greatest examples I can go for is the Diablo series. When it comes to the music, it's all about either you have contrast or you're doing something in order to kind of convey something similar to it. So you're either close by or you're doing the direct opposite. And the reason why I utilize Diablo as such a good reference material is, if you ever listen to the soundtrack, it's like the most serene soundtrack you'll ever listen to. It's not rock and roll all the way through. It never is that. You have like these acoustic guitars playing while you're slaughtering these hordes of demons. And that brings contrast to the experience, because you're already feeling this stressful by killing all those enemies. If you added that extra volume to that, having like speed metal to it, I think the players would have a heart attack at some point.
But I think that's like almost design choices, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, for me, like, okay, so we can use music as an instrument or as a asset to just kind of stress up the player, but I felt like, you can also, like, there needs to be a dance of the design, the actual boss, and the music. If music is only going to take the role of trying to elevate something, and like, okay, then it's easy to fall into the trap where it's like, oh, this boss is not good enough, but let the music do the job of trying to make it scary. And I think people see through that, like, because one of the things that actually didn't really go through in the game that I was a bit sad about was that in the beginning we talked that the bosses would mainly be animals, and there are like two animal-ish in the game. And like I had this big vision that is in there with two of the bosses that are animal, where it's like because these are also the only songs that are interactive. So they start off kind of cool or whatever, but then in the end, like I had as a vision, like they were just going to be totally sad. Like, so it was also again playing towards this thing of the ahimsa, where it's like, so in the beginning you're like, slaughtering, like, I'm gonna get this motherfucker, and then it's like in the end you're like, why is it so sad all of a sudden? And it's like to try and get a little bit of that, idea of like, why am I killing this thing? Like, who told me to do that, sort of. And unfortunately then, as games do, they change. So then we have other characters that are not really animal, and that didn't really go in there. But I think that there's it's design as much in that case. And then maybe Diablo, they have nailed it, where they find the perfect balance somehow. Yeah, super cool. I have to listen.
It's just a note from me that I found it very interesting going through and having all these more serene acoustic tracks onto something about slaughtering things all the time.
So super cool, yeah. I mean, that aspect alone makes it interesting, right? So.
Yes. And I think it is interesting because why did it do it? But at the same time, you're really swallowing the experience in the correct way. Like you're feeling awesome because you're doing all these amazing things, but at the same time, you're not overstating everything. You're not complaining about the music being crap or being slow as it is. But when you get into like the classic one, you've been slaughtering things in the cathedral, and you come back to Tristram, and you start hearing those stringing instruments, the guitar, the 6-string guitar going in, playing that Tristram theme. You're feeling relaxed all of a sudden, even if you just went freaking gotta go fast Sonic killing everything just a second ago.
Yeah.
And I really like the aspect of that, and it brings a lot of questions to the plate, in my opinion. It's like, how do we? I don't think we even gone that deep into understanding what music could potentially be.
No,
it's been so much more explored in movies, for example, because in movies we have specifically things happen at the specific moments. Like every time you're watching a movie, you will have the exact same viable experience and thoughts surrounding it. But in video games, like if you're listening to a 5-minute song, you can literally be anywhere during those 5 minutes, except for the first seconds when you get into the room.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's interesting. I think just on a last note on that is also like what we talked about before with like songs being long and dynamics and stuff. And I feel like that's again for me the part of it where it's like, yeah, but you know, to really try to use that to your benefit as well, and to do that thing. And I think also again, like, I mean, obviously we are both in the industry, and like there are so many games being made, and it's like, yeah, obviously we can go for the rock and roll thing, and that will work. But again, like also just like, wow, there are so many of those already. So yeah,
yes.
like yeah.
Definitely. No, but on this other hand, I think it's time to move on to the next track.
Yes.
This is my last track that I picked for this week. And, well, it has a kind of short name. It's only called Vainglory. There we have the track Vainglory, and my thoughts on this one. One of the more, and I question with the bunny ears here, which nobody can see, out there tracks of the OST. Feels almost industrial styled, but shot through a filter of melancholy. Background noises that are static slash glitchy. However, the string instrument that's coming in gives more of a richer volume and almost a darkness to it. This track becomes very emotional, mostly on the sad spectrum. Those were my words on this one.
Yeah. Can I hire you to do this on all tracks? Or something so I can just... I just want to... This is so nice.
No,
yeah.
It's always fun. It's always extra fun to, of course, hear the composer, what they think of these. If they spark, if it's on spot. Usually, it seems like I have a really good theme of this. Either finding the specific instruments or trying to set the same kind of tone that they were after when they were doing this, which is also one of the reasons why I do this. Either it is a hit or it is a miss, but in the end, it actually gives one good perspective from one person that actually listened to the track.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's super nice. Yeah, I think you're on point as well, so yeah.
So specifically, what was I more on point with this one? Because I used a lot of different words. Industrial style, melancholy, utilizing the string instrument to bring more richer and darkness to this, etc.
Yeah, no, but at the industrial style, so this is also a feature of Niklas Eloervo. So basically, Niklas did almost all the programming of the drums on this one. So,
okay.
Yeah, so because if anyone listened to Niklas, because since he is an amazing multi-talented artist, he also makes great music, as we talked about before, and he does a lot of these like drum-heavy songs, almost leaning into hip hop kind of style. So yeah, he did the drums, and then I redid them a little bit, mixed them and fixed a little bit. But I think that the industrial part that you mentioned is for sure there, and I think that's also a little bit why that song gets a little bit of a different vibe as well, because it's the collaboration. Yeah. And then, you nailing it with the cello part. I think that or the strings giving it something more. I think that's sort of what it does with having cello on a hip hop track. That's a weird idea. So,
but it gives contrast to it as well. I mean, one of the things that is interesting with this specific area, you will be meeting this new character. I won't say the name or anything to keep it spoiler free, but one of the things within this area, it actually gives the the industrial part a little bit more oomph to it, because you have some sort of mechanicism happening within this area. I know you know what I'm talking about, and everybody else will be like, I have no clue what he's talking about.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So was there a specific reason why you felt like, hey, I want to cooperate on this one? Or was it specifically like, hey, I need drums for this one, that El Huervo joined in?
Ooh, I can't remember exactly. I mean, because Niklas helped out with drums on some other tracks as well, because it was like, it's his art style, and then obviously I wanted to just use him as I used the cello players or whatever in the best possible way. But yeah, the industrial part for sure is one aspect, and then also this character that we're not mentioning right now, like this area. I mean, we can still say like that she's a huntress, and like, so there's a lot of things. Again, I think it more ties into what we talked about before, with like the voices being the representation of the wisps, the bass clarinet being the representation of one boss, and where the drums and this kind of up-tempo thing in this song sort of represents the huntress in some sense. And I think also like the crazy cello solo in this one that I actually talked about before, where it was like an improvisation that I then recut, repitched, and blah 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 was fixing with. It's also more of like trying to tell a story of that character. So
now I can understand and I can see that. I almost started feeling like, oh, that must be, but it's like, no, I'm not gonna go into that. I think it's gonna spoil if we go deeper into that specific question I had. But one of the things that I find interesting in this situation happening around this, there's so much development going on within this area.
Yeah.
So having this kind of, I would say it comes with some certain flow to it. And for me, who've been running around in this area a lot of times, it actually feels really good walking around with this track. So in my opinion, I think it's a great track for this area. And of course, I can say that for a lot of the different themes within this, as I've been playing it, because as I said, when it comes to the game and also your style of being a composer, being much more organic in what you're composing, I think it ties well into the thematicism of the game, of course. But when you get to this specific section, it becomes a little bit out of the comfort zone of being organic, which is also interesting why you also had El Huervo, who's been working especially more on sci-fi type of games. Well, thinking about SteamWorld Dig, for example. Yeah. So it's really interesting how it kind of comes hand to hand on that sense. Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I'm a bit sad about, but that at the same time doesn't matter, is that like there was no way, because there is no, like, the bosses are interactive, but then on all of these levels, I don't know if you even noticed, but on Vasa there's also a heavier version of this song that transitions when you're fighting bigger bosses, where the drums becomes even more crazy. So like all of the main areas have two, like the main song, and then they have two layers of fighting. So when you're fighting a smaller enemy, there will be one small layer coming on top. And I didn't want to, like, also a design choice where it was like, I didn't want the whole thing to change into another beat, and you would be like, you know, this classical thing of, oh, and then you get out of the thing and then back to the whatever it was. So I did like a stem or like another track that works over the whole song and changes with the dynamics of the song. And then there is then the heavy one as well, where if you fight the bigger enemies, it will move on into layering those two stems plus the original track. So I think that, like, hopefully you didn't think about it, because it's so sort of like smooth in one case, and that was sort of the goal of the whole thing. But then, like, when you look at it, like, okay, this is the only song where it's like up-tempo drum kind of vibe, but there are drums and crazy things happening in other areas as well, but you sort of don't really notice it. Especially that's what I was saying, why I'm a bit sad, because there was no way for me to kind of showcase that on the soundtrack. So actually a lot of music that's in the game cannot even be presented in a soundtrack, because it would be weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I understand this correctly, considering battles within this game and in different certain areas, the game music is actually a bit dynamic then.
Yes.
So when do they usually tend to move in? Is it when an enemy gets into the frame of what you can see, or is it when the player is initially like going in for one sort of like battle move?
Yeah, I think if we're being super technical, I think the enemies has like an state of like they've seen you and now they're gonna attack, right? So as soon as that enemy has that focus on you, then the music will change. But then it's then they are determined by the different kind of heaviness of the enemy. So there are only like some certain like enemies that will trigger the heaviest section, and the other enemies will actually be more kind of just an airy kind of string vibe that's more not as notable. But that was also part of the design choice of like, we didn't want to lift out the player of the experience. We wanted to keep them in the experience. So but then obviously there's things like Gardner where we just listen to where there will be no fighting music at all, because we were like, but he's the he's all about nature and peace, so we won't even have that there. And there are really not heavy enemies in there as well, so
No, it's a really nice explanation. I like that one. Another thing we talked about after repeating cycles was something about solos. Is this the song we're going to talk about solos?
Yeah. I mean, this was the solo. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are like Björn has he's done 2 solos in this one. It's funny, but the cello player. But yeah. So this one, I don't know. It was weird. I don't know. He did an improvisation. I cut it up and, as I said, pitched it and fixed it and did a lot of numerous things. And then I wrote like a harmony to that one, and then he came back and he was like, what the fuck is this? Like, you just destroyed my solo and now you want me to record it again? So yeah, he was laughing hysterically, thinking it was very meta to re-record a rearranged solo with it was very weird, but he did it amazingly, I think, and it turned out quite funny. I don't know if like did you really think about it as a solo in that sense, or was it more like a part of the song, or how did you see that?
No, in my opinion, I definitely did not react to it in the same sense, because for me, when I'm playing an experience, I only get taken out of that experience if something drastically is happening to the gameplay or something drastically is happening to the music. But as long as the music and the gameplay kind of comes hand in hand, I actually don't notice details, because I get so focused in the experience itself. So that is one of the good things about music-wise in this. I'm so into the experience, I don't notice the smaller changes, but it keeps me well into the experience.
Yeah. No, but then I mean, for me, I would take that as a compliment and sort of see that as mission successful. Because if it would have been a solo where you started thinking about it and sort of got pulled out of the experience, I would have said I failed, sort of. So yeah, that's super cool.
But in consideration to having a dynamic music when you play the game, and you feel like, hey, I want to represent a good OST on Spotify, for example. Since you have such a long period of time in the songs, didn't you think about implementing some of these like sections within the track itself?
Yeah, no, I did. It was hard to find like I guess I could have done, because the thing is that the song would be the same, just that these things are added on top, if that makes sense. So
exactly.
In one way it would sort of be the same song one more time, and then again it was a little bit of this violence, non-violence kind of aspect where do I want to put more violence in these songs? But yeah, I mean, there's like especially there's one area where I think there's a super funny groove drum that happens on top of what's in there, and the song in itself is super like slow and melancholic, and then at the same time you only meet these heavy enemies quite seldom, so it doesn't even happen so much, but the entire song could be maybe I will have to do like a bootleg weird extra thing. Maybe that's a good idea.
I'm just thinking, like, instead of having just a B-side of the full soundtrack together with action, for example, if you have the Vainglory, which is 5 minutes and 22 seconds, what if like after 4 minutes you get this like extra layer just at the end, for example, just to give a hint of what could be happening within the game? Maybe I should. It's a good idea. It's just a thought that I get, like, if you want to present the full kind of vibrant picture of what the game gives. I know a lot of times I've been talking to composers like, you have a dynamic soundtrack, and Well, not everybody's gonna release a soundtrack like Luftrausers, where they release like 130 songs, because
Wow.
Every track has a layer depending on which plane part you're utilizing. So if you use the same plane body but not the same weapon and not the thruster, you can have like almost unlimited types of music already from there.
Wow.
And I guess not everybody's gonna release those kind of soundtracks because it's insane. So instead, incorporating them to making longer tracks that maybe, let's say, the song Vainglory would only be 2 minutes. Let's make a 4-minute track where you have 2 minutes of the niceness and 2 minutes of the more upbeat one. But then you can always discuss like, oh, then it's 4 minutes. Who's gonna listen to 4 minutes track? The people who love VGM, that's who's gonna listen to.
Or a shorter version of the whole thing with the drums on it. Yeah. No. I mean, that's a good idea. Yeah, I think it's like. I mean, then again, it's like. I mean, I really had a vision of trying to make these songs work outside of the game. Like, I really wanted them to, transcend what the game is, because I feel like they have to be able to stand on their own. But then again, of course, like the main purpose of their existence is to help the game. So obviously, it's hard to. Make both.
But if you could select, like somewhere it would transcend into yourself, where would you theoretically think your market is in real life?
You mean in people listening to it, or in what way?
If the music would transcend out of the game and into something else, if you only take the music, it's like where do you think it would be placed? Because I have one suggestion what I think.
Ooh, wow. Okay, I want to hear yours first. I mean, for me, it's like, I don't know. Like, I think that, again, it's almost like the battle of, do people even like video game music at all or not, sort of? Because I think that in one way, a lot of these songs would work on any kind of like chill, I don't know, vibe thing anywhere. But then, the fact that games doesn't always have the status, it won't be played. But
I mean, you already know my answer, so.
okay. Can I hear it? Can you? Yeah.
You already know my answer because I have a podcast about video game music, so of course it comes out of the game. No, I'm sorry if I disturb you there in your.
No. Now I understood. Yeah.
So in my opinion, with this specific soundtrack, I'm not talking about everything, but we're talking about Ultros. And for me, if this would transcend out of the game into somewhere, I would say massage sessions.
Ooh. I'm digging that.
Because it's serene. It comes with, of course, it can be a little bit sad, but usually when I go to massage sessions, you usually tend to have those more serene, nice little tracks that are almost minimalistic. But in this sense, you can have a massage session and you can think about life while everything else is just releasing.
Dude, I mean, I must tell you then, it's so funny, like, because my girlfriend is from Spain, and we went to Madrid, and she booked this. Wait, what is the name? Now I'm goofing off the name. It's called shiatsu massage. Do you know about this?
No.
So it's like, again, I'm not sure. Let people Google this because I'm not sure. But it's somewhere in Asia, Japan, maybe, where it's like a super interesting type of meditation, massage that I had never experienced before. And I was like, it was so crazy. It was like, it was just amazing in so many ways. I was like tripping out. Like, it was super, super funny. But yeah, I was actually thinking a lot about that at that time. I even told him, like, I would like to try and write music for that massage session. So maybe, I should just start.
You already did.
Yeah, I already did. But like when you tell me these things, it's almost like, this is like the type of answers where it's like, why was it hard to write boss songs? Because it was about nonviolence. And now you're like, massage. And maybe, that was part of it as well, because that happened under the process. And I don't know. It's always interesting. Yeah.
So if you're noticing that the video game music is not working out, massage parlors will buy it.
No, but I think honestly, like with the gunk that we previously just mentioned that I did before, I mean, there were a lot of people telling me when it was out that they found the whole soundtrack very meditative, and I was like, I didn't have a goal of putting that in there. I didn't have that as an intention, but then obviously, as I already said, I started meditating a lot when I was doing that soundtrack. So of course, it transcends into that kind of thing. So
it feels like it's becoming a part of you now. This is who you are.
Yeah.
Now that's nice. Cool. Now I think it's time for us to dive into the last track of the week. How you feel about that?
Let's do it.
Already? It's already over.
Yeah.
No, the track we're going to end it all with is called Eternally blessed. Eternally blessed. A very minimalistic start. When it comes to start, it starts up by utilizing these, I would say, signals, almost warnings coming in. But these signals are also converted to some sort of heartbeat throughout the track. A very dark and very ominous track overall.
Yes.
Yeah. Why the hell? Why the hell is so dark?
Yeah, why the hell is so dark? No, I mean, a little bit of the explanation, this is no spoiler, is that this song is played in the room where Ultros is like laying or existing. So obviously it's a special place within the game. And yeah, I guess therefore it's kind of heavy in some sense. Yeah.
And for me, you've been playing this for some time. I'm just guessing, but yeah, there's a lot of things to keep in mind while here. So maybe warnings could be a good sign. I don't know at all.
Yeah.
I haven't finished the game, so I don't know for sure. But
absolutely, yeah. I think it's one of those rooms also where the song is actually, I think, too long in one sense, because you can sort of trigger the next part of that room quite easily, and then you won't even hear the cello part. So
if I remember correctly about this room, it can be very short sometimes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. It felt like also I wanted a story surrounding the Ultros and the room, and it was not possible to do that with in 10 seconds. So this is what it had to be somehow.
When you were, I'm guessing, since you had so little time for this, but still wanted to portray some sort of, well, in this case, ominous vibe to it. Was it hard to create this track since you had so little to play with to begin with?
Actually, I can't remember if I specifically... I mean, I remember the process of making... I wrote this song in like 30 minutes. It was super crazy. I just remember I was in the studio late one night and I had like set out a goal to write another song for the game. And then I started and my brain was like, no, we are not going to write that song. You're going to do this song. And then this just happened. So... it came to be quite fast. And then I can't actually remember if it was Niklas who's like, this is going to be here or... Exactly, but I remember that the cello I recorded afterwards, after that night or whatever. And so no, I don't know. It's like, again, it's hard. It's like with games, it's like, okay, so the player could be there for a long time, or the player could not, and I don't know what kind of where to go. Like if I can't tell my story and it doesn't work within a short period, then I will do the longer one, and then it will be what it will be. Like I mean, it's the sad part and cool part with games that a lot of songs might not even be heard by people. Like I mean, there are even places in the game where the player can sort of just skip entire songs that are for me super important, that I put my heart and soul into, and of course I cry every time I realize that is possible. But
and this is why you don't watch speedruns, people.
yeah. Wow, I saw someone like breaking one of the boss songs, just like was playing so good that the different parts didn't even have time to play, you know. So
oh my god.
And then I was like, oh no.
Yeah, he destroyed it.
He destroyed it.
My baby.
Oh, man, yeah, exactly, a little bit like that. But yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, all you can do is create the framework and the play field, and whatever player is doing within those frames and that play field is what comes out of it. And well, if they get a good experience, of course that's the win for you. But if they're getting out of that experience for some reason, it could theoretically be because how they are doing it, but also, well, it made too much of a contrast for them listening to that track, for example.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think when it comes to making video game music, it has so many more, I would say, risks in this case, because there's so many more risks of a player being taken out of the experience or stepping into the experience than movies, for example, have, or music itself.
Yeah. I mean, I must say, like, I think there is always there's always debates, you know, when doing games and like discussing on how to do things. I think, though, of course, there is the design aspect where I sometimes feel that like people are a bit too scared of things having to happen, you know. Where it's like, I think it's very hard. It's like, okay, but do we have to allow the player to be able to skip this? Like, is that really necessary? And then it's like, I mean, you know, that's very individual, and like some people, you know, they want to go fast and they get bothered by the game not allowing them to continue forward. So you know, I get that idea, but then of course I sometimes feel like, you know, the days when you're sad, obviously I cry when I've put like months of work with my musicians into something that, you know, a designer decides, oh, you can just press a button and like it won't even happen. So yeah, that's the reality. So
But at the same time, thinking that somebody does not click that to avoid everything, that person, that gamer, will also have a whole other experience than anybody else. Of course, there will be these selected few that will experience the true entity of what the game is supposed to be. And they will hopefully see the golden goose that exists there.
Yeah, I know, for sure. I think it's like sort of where the sign of, you know, getting old, where like, now everything doesn't need to go so fast all the time. Let it take a little time, you know. Like, but yeah, no, exactly like that. Yeah.
And then you start scrolling on Instagram and going through 200 reels. It's like, oh, it's not enough.
Yeah, wow, man. I mean, that's part of the problem, right? That's why the anxiety of having this, you have to push. Like, that's why it exists, because you know that's what we are like surrounded with all day. You know, that fast tempo. So. Yeah.
But do you feel like it's getting to you in some way, or are you able to kind of distance yourself from this?
I think like I'm working every day with distancing myself, but when it comes to the game, if I could decide, I would say no, there won't be any button for sure. I think that, I don't know, like, I mean, of course it depends on what kind of game you're making or what you're doing, but like now just being super on the side of music, I think it's sort of like, I mean, if there is an idea with the music, I think that the other people should listen to that idea at least and be like respecting that, you know, idea, rather than just deciding that, okay, but like our idea of fear or whatever is gonna, you know, go over that. But then again, I like still understand, you know, I still understand, but I
believe from my perspective here, I think it's hard to say to somebody, either if you're a composer or if you're a programmer, it's like, oh, this is the way to interpret fear. It's like, from a musical perspective, the composer could be right. Like, this is what you need in order to progress in fear. But if you're making a clown in the game, it's not going to be fear in the same sense, because people will be, colors, ooh. So of course it goes hand to hand with what the experience is, which is why it's so important, in my opinion, to kind of correct the game together with the music, not making them separately. Because then you're just creating dissonance to the experience itself.
Yeah, and it's not a collaboration.
Yes,
it's like
I tend to see these issues from time to time. It's like, oh, what the hell were they thinking about the music? I'm not complaining about the composer. I'm more thinking about, okay, either the composer did not get the memo of something, or somebody at the development team said, oh, this is good enough, and didn't really think about what was the cause and effect of that choice.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that the example we just listened to is good in that sense, where it's like, okay, that was my decision of making it too long, because it's like, okay, so people can miss that because the possibility of the game, and I knew that, is that you will go from here to here and do that, and then it will, stop the thing. So then it's like, okay, then I do the decisioning of like, okay, I should have done a 5-second or 10-second song instead of doing a, how long, whatever it is. I think just the difference for me is where it's like, where there's an event where it's sort of not really, I don't know, that like the decision making on why it should be fast or slow is not as evident as you like, or as clear. But yeah, no, of course, yeah. I mean, that's when I think like we got a lot of good credits for me and Niklas, the art and music being very synchronized and being very like like a whole unit or whatever. And I'm sure that that's because we did these early sketches and early exercises that we talked about in the beginning, and that's why it worked. So yeah, for sure, people should try to.
No,
but I mean,
definitely.
It's game dev. Everyone also knows it's so many different things. There's so much people. There's so much things. So I mean, this is sort of romanticizing whatever we would want the game industry to be. But then, of course, like we also see the games today where it becomes more and more like trying to please everybody, and that's hard. Like not everyone likes Thai food, not everyone likes pasta, and that's just what it is. So
yeah, we ended up in a situation where it takes too many resources and too much time from people to create something that it needs to have a wider audience to be valuable to the development team. I mean, you worked on this game, as you said, 6 years. It's like, if you're looking at the numbers and economy on those 6 years of the time you worked on this, it needs to sell to a certain extent for it to be worth the time you put into this in the end. Or else it's just like a passion project that everybody was doing on their free time, and in the end, 6, 7, 10 years later, it was released, and people can think whatever they would like on it, and you don't really care about how much it will earn you. But in the end, this is, even if it's a passion project, if it can bring money to the table, it will in the end help the developers and of course composers.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's super complex. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes though, like I also agree that, it's about, how to get it to work. But it's like also, I don't know, like, why do people like things and not? It's like not always so evident of it being because of money or not. I don't know. It's like it's a hard one.
At the same time, for example, time is of essence here as well. I mean, if I would have listened to this soundtrack a year ago, I might not have liked it, for example. But I'm in such a state of mind right now that I actually adore this music. I find it pleasing, interesting. But a year ago, when I was listening to like speed metal and so on, I thought I might have thought that, oh, this is weird, it's too slow, etc., etc.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I guess that is like where we are at these days with all kind of games. Like you're referencing so much different things, and everyone is in different things. But then again, it's also about like I mean, trying from our point of view to, even though you were listening to speed metal, like to try and convey you into realizing that but maybe this slower tempo could be good for you as well. Yeah,
exactly.
No, it's interesting. I think it's like, I mean, everyone is at their point in life doing whatever they're doing in their point of life as well. So, I mean, obviously everyone has that with different kind of culture, books or whatever. You read a book when you're 15 and you're like, what is this about? And then when you're 25, like you're like, oh,
you're
now
a bookworm.
I get it. So, yeah. No, but then you realize what it was about, or So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But in consideration to have a little bit of a last question set to the Ultros soundtrack here, what was the biggest challenge you had with this project?
Wow, I think Yeah, I think we've been scratching a little bit on the surface of this thing of the boss battles, like how hard it was to go into the direction of being, angry stuff versus the non-violent kind of thing. But I think actually it is like this thing also where 6 years, it's a passion project, you're working with friends, and I think, it's hard to care so much about something and then at the same time trying to be professional. I don't know. I think everyone is battling with that in some sense, where it's like, again, we talked about giving your soul into something, and I really want to do that, and I really believe in that. So then, of course, you get even more sad when you can click away the song, That's like the thing. If I wouldn't have cared as much, I wouldn't care as much. But so, I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And also when it's so long, my life certainly had a lot of things happening throughout this project and process. And so that was very hard as well to kind of stick with the idea and continue, in that sense. But,
push through. Most of all.
Push through. I think like everyone, you doing this podcast is like a huge win, like just doing something. People releasing games, it's not easy. It's like people releasing music, people doing things. It's like that should be celebrated. I think it's not easy. Yeah. So
definitely.
I don't know. Yeah, a lot of things was hard, but I think I feel like I'm happy it's over, man.
Yeah. But I'm thinking, since it felt like with that question, we ended up in a more sad kind of perspective here now. I think we should end in a more happy perspective. So what is your most positive thing that you feel like you're walking away with from this project? What is it that you like the most?
I think like I've been deep in my relationships with a lot of the people in the team, like me and Niklas. We have been friends for so long, and it's like this thing. So you didn't even realize you could become deeper in that sense. Like just like traveling, seeing Sweden. I mean, we didn't even talk about it, but I actually got to travel to Peru. I met a lot of people. I recorded sounds there. I got to know Gardner, the amazing character that I love the music for. I worked more with amazing musicians. Like I felt so privileged in so many ways, and I met so much nice people, and also people have been so happy about the game so far. So no, I couldn't be more happy in a lot of sense. It's more just being tired, sort of, where it's like you're glad it's over. But other than that, like.
But the experience on the way was worth it.
Yeah. I think like the journey is the goal kind of cliche thing, where it's like I will look back at the photos from the hikes and stuff and be like, wow, that happened, and I was too busy crying over boss battles. No. And I get to sit here and talk with you, so
that's amazing.
That's something I'm happy about.
Yes. So with that, we're closing down our little talk about Ultros. I want to hear a little bit more about you. What do you have anything you can talk about? What's going on your end now?
Not really, actually. I mean, I got a lot of songs I'm gonna finish now with my own project, like my own albums that I've been working on for a long time. So I'm really, really excited about that. You know how it is grinding a job and then having time to do other things outside of the job.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. Just finished mixing my own album. Actually, Where Beyond, the cello player will be playing. So
and
hopefully
in this
that
case, we're talking about Ratvader now as well.
Yes. So that will be solo Ratvader stuff. So that will come out this year. And I have so much music that I've been working on the side during these times. And as you said, awesome. I have to write the massage album now. So yeah,
greatest massage hits.
Yeah. Wow, that's gonna be awesome. Yeah,
looking forward to it. I will pitch it to all the massage parlors here in Nyköping.
Yes, you can bring a CD, right, when you go next time.
Yes. Hey, can you play this?
Yeah.
Awesome. And if people thought it was actually really nice listening to you talk and have some more questions for any reason, is there any way they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, my number is 0. No. No, but I'm on Twitter, Instagram, of course, blah, blah. But
I don't know about this service, blah, blah, blah.
No, blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, my email address. No. So, yeah, no, but you can find that stuff if you just go to Instagram Instagram, Ratvader _ or Twitter _ and I guess all info you would need is there. So, and yeah, it would be super fun. I always appreciate talking. That's what I said. I love your, when you talk about the tracks, I want you to do all of them. So be sure to reach out if you have any of those questions. What about you? Where do I find you these days?
On me, you usually find me on Chris X Sweet.
Chris X Sweet.
Yeah, on most places: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Well, everywhere. It's the nickname I use, but for the podcast, people can find it on Gameable Audio on Facebook and on Instagram.
Nice.
Always the amazing part. No, is there anything else you feel you want to share with us this evening before we close everything down here?
Start meditating, go to therapy, call your mom, and tell her you love her.
I'm calling my mom every day, but I don't really say I love her. We're not that kind of family. But, that's mine either, but that we have to practice that. So tomorrow you will do that for the first time. My mother will listen to this episode, and she will most likely hang me if I don't have said I love you before she listens to this.
Yeah. Mamma, Inger, jag älskar dig. I love you also. Yeah, so we have it out there.
Now it's public and also online forever.
Yes.
Awesome. No, Oscar, as always, thank you so much for joining in yet another episode, but this time on Gameable Audio.
Thank you, man. So fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for everybody else, you can find other episodes of the Gameable Audio on our homepage, videospelsklubben.se, Spotify, or in your closest podcast app. And yet again, feel free to follow and comment on any of our social medias, either on Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find us there. You can also support this podcast for future content and quality upgrades. Well, what you're listening through right now is my new mixer board and everything that I purchased, not with the money from Patreon, but with my own this time. Yet again, it's always fun. But we're getting more quality upgrades, which I'm just enthusiastic about. But in the end, when I don't need more money for this, because now I already have a mixer board, so I don't need Patreon money to buy that. In the end, when we have everything needed, everything else with dollars and dimes will go to future composers. So think about becoming a Patreon backer. Our current awesome backers that we do have today is Daniel Olemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Thank you so much for being part and supporting my work here at Gameable Audio. Links where you can either buy and support the composer behind the music that we'll listen to today, in this case Ratvader, and also Ultros the game, of course, will be found at our main post at videospelsklubben.se. And now is a little bit of a question. I actually didn't prepare you for this one. Did you know about the little game called the Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom?
Is that a question to me?
Yes.
No.
Awesome. Then you will be super excited for the next episode, as I'm going to talk to the composer Jakob Linke, who actually lives not far from Gothenburg. I think it is.
Yeah, no, but Jakob I know of. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, cool.
He's been working on this new game called Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. So we're going to talk about this amazing kind of Sonic-esque vibe, retro-styled soundtrack. It is amazing. I've been listening to it.
Now when you say it, yeah, I recognize it now. Now I know. Yeah, I'm going to tune in for that. Cool. Yeah. Exciting.
Awesome. So the next episode we're going to talk about that game, and I'm just super excited to have Jacob back to talk a little bit more. And yet again, he was one of those composers that I talked to very early on in the podcast history, so I've only been able to talk to him in Swedish, so super excited to talk in English and talk about this specific game that I'm just super excited. I will be playing the demo up for this. The game is already live out there for people to purchase and already play that. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. So yeah, with that said, the podcast theme music was composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström. This was episode 35 on the Ultros special, together with Oscar Ratvader Rydelius. With that, I want to say, take good care, everybody. Have a good one, and see you all guys next time.
Take care, everybody. Ciao.